Girls. Come on, girls. What are you doing? You've already had a bunch. Here. I have several girlfriends. One of them is over here, and when we branded them, she was one of the first ones in the chute, and her number's 38, so she's 3 over 38, and I put the 3 on backwards. The last cup of coffee I had was in Mexico, taking photos for one of Annette Lasater's books, 2 to Mexico, and I had a cup of coffee down there in January of '78, and that was the last cup I've had. And I'm starting to think as I get a little older, maybe I need to start drinking coffee. And I don't drink soft drinks. I've had about 20 in my life. And as Uncle Tom Lasater, he was the first person to, he was so ahead of, not that he's better than anybody else. Nobody's better than anybody else, although in some senses they are, but you can't say that. But anyway, but Uncle Tom was just way ahead of people. He, as you already know, I think, he was the first one to advocate working with nature. As Uncle Tom said, nature is smarter than all of us. And so when people try to coordinate and work with nature more, then, generally speaking, I would say that that'll work out better. Hello, girls. Hello, what are y'all doing? Let somebody else have a pellet. Uncle Tom Lasater developed the breed, as y'all probably know, or most people might know. And he had 5 essentials, and I'll name them. But in the end, there were 6 essentials. But anyway, this is not alphabetical necessarily, but conformation, fertility, milk production, weight, hardiness. And then he added disposition. Uncle Tom added disposition later. He realized how important disposition is. And I've been told by people that know this herd, some guy told me a couple of years ago, your cattle are so gentle, they're a nuisance. And they are a nuisance. In fact, they occasionally step on your feet if they're just mobbed around you, around a person. But they are gentle. We rather have gentle cattle than idiots. And so disposition, again, of those 6 essentials, Uncle Tom added that one last. And Dad has all these stories I can tell people because Dad was right there with Uncle Tom along the way. And Uncle Tom used to brand on the rear so he could, this was in South Texas, Falfurrias, in the brush country down there. And he branded them on the rear so he could try to identify who it is that's running away from him. When Dad was running the thing, if I was here, we would drive the herd sires out to these different groups, horseback. Man, Juan and I, we're not lazy, but we just back the trailer up and they hop and they jump in the trailer. They know what time it is. Sometimes you have trouble getting cattle in a trailer. Not those bulls, they get right in there. Hey, Bo. Come on, Ray. Hey, Bo. Here. But Dad was buying, a bull's, Uncle Tom's bull program every year. And in '67, he told Dad, Paolo, your cattle, your herd's good enough. You don't need to buy any more cattle. And so Dad closed the herd then.
What do you mean by closed herd?
No outside blood. The only outside blood now is if a neighbor's animal gets in here. So we've got, I've been told by other people, we've got the most fertile herd in the breed. I wouldn't be surprised about that. We may have a most fertile herd in a bunch of breeds, but in Beefmasters, I think probably definitely. And then, like last year, I ran a 28-day on everything that had a calf, and the heifers had 30 days. The first calf heifers, like these that are calving now. One of the things Dad and Uncle Tom always said, keep putting pressure on your cattle. Well, a lot of people don't put any pressure on their cattle, as you all know. I mean, that's what you're up against is people,
Promoters.
all these puffed up cattle that are not functional. We sent herd sires down near the border, San Pedro Ranch, and Joseph had those bulls for a long time, and they still, I think, get calves out of their descendants. But he said these bulls have been, I think he used the word paragon, I believe that's what it was, of what Dr. Bondsma called functional efficiency. Oh yeah, and on Instagram or Facebook, I'll see people put a picture, and I'll forward some of those things to Doug, and have a picture of some loose-hided fat heifer, and just no telling what they paid for her, and just bragging about her and all this stuff, her pedigree, and that's another thing on pedigree, we could care less. Because Uncle Tom said the pedigree is in the name. This is my Aunt Mary Casey Lasater, Dad's sister, my aunt, of course, Tom Lasater's wife. She, in the Lasater philosophy of cattle raising, she's quoted there, color doesn't matter when the T-bone is on the platter. And that's the truth. An interesting thing on fertility is in 2014, it was so dry. And I mean, the ranch looked about like this, literally. I have pictures, you just go, there's nothing to eat. And that's when I fed a lot of pellets trying to hang on. So anyway, I talked to Dad, but we shortened the breeding season 25 days. And Tom Eccles is a veterinarian in Breckenridge, and he's done the bulk of our veterinary work. Anyway, back in the spring, March of 2015, came over and I told him, well, Tom, we ran a 25-day season last year, and you just groaned and started pregnancy testing. When it was all done, this is the cow herd, 19 of them were open. It was, I believe it was either 88 or 89% were pregnant. And nobody could believe it, because the ranch had been in terrible shape. I told Dad, and he goes, congratulations. Oh, well, I didn't do anything. And then one of my brothers said, what'd y'all do? I said, we didn't do anything. We hauled the bulls out and unloaded them to different breeding groups. That's all we do. And Donnie Robertson, he does our scanning, and every year he says these cattle scan better than cattle that have been on feed. And we want to know what they'll do on grass. We know what they'll do if you pour the feed to them. And that's what the majority of people scan their cattle after they've fed them, which to me is false data. And I've told some of these people, one of our customers actually, I said, he was advocating that. I said, that's not real data. You're puffing it up. We want to know what they do on grass. Well, of course, you can see these cattle don't have a bunch of loose hides on them. Unfortunately, you can look at Beefmasters and just see sloppy, fat, loose-hided, sheathy cattle. These are clean, and that's another thing I was going to say with those bulls. Uncle Tom, years ago, somebody got on Uncle Tom about, your cattle need more leather on them. And, just ridiculous. And he said, I've never seen one the hide didn't go all the way around. I mean, it's just the ludicrous stuff that people come up with. Yes, it's just pitiful. They have some muscle, they have some muscle there in their hindquarters. They're not loose-hided. All right, here she comes. What are you doing? These clouds are pretty.
They sure are. Get some still shots of that.
What are you doing? This is the mother of that 57 bull. What are you doing? You poor thing. What are you doing? Get that bucket, please.
Closer.
What are you doing? Dad and Uncle Tom are both extremely intelligent. And they, I'm not saying that because they're my relatives, but they just were. And one of the things Dad loved about Uncle Tom is, he said Uncle Tom said the hardest thing in the cattle business is to keep it simple. And people are just doing all kinds of stuff with their cattle